Through the end of September, all the proceeds of my anti-AI posters are going to Stop Killer Robots, an amazing coalition that is working to ban autonomous lethal weaponry. Hey everybody, it's LavenderTowne, and today I'm making collectible toys into human characters, creating an aesthetic around these guys, as well as talking about their history and the artists who originally designed them. First, we must of course talk about Labubu. Labubu is enjoying an absurd level of popularity and trendiness at the moment, but rather than focusing on the matcha Pilates Dubai chocolate algorithmic hashtagging of it all, I want to dig into Labubu's lore and origin. I think a lot of people forget that these collectible toys are usually designed by illustrators and that this is a type of art job. So I wanted to really focus on the artists who originally designed all these little guys. In the case of Labubu, the original creator is Casing Lung. Labubu is a mischievous little elf that was inspired by his upbringing in the Netherlands, where he was exposed to lots of Nordic lore and mythology. In her first appearances, Labubu was a character in Lung's children's book series The Monsters, where she was drawn like this. Personality-wise, she's a trickster who likes to prank her boyfriend Taikoko and get into trouble. Now, technically with the Labubu lore, there are many Labubu. They're like kind of a race of creature, but the Labubu that we see with Taikoko is one specific Labubu. The more you say it, the less it sounds like a real word. Anyhow, I love the way that she is originally designed in his illustrations. She looks so chaotic and fun, and it reminds me a lot actually of Tove Jansson's illustrations for Moomin. I love Jansson's novels as well, and I really see that like Nordic kind of fairy tale vibe in a lot of these drawings by Lung. So I wanted to design a character that really digs into the aesthetics of Labubu as a personality. I do think that like these dolls are kind of associated with a trendier type of girl nowadays. I think that's partially because I think Lisa from Blackpink had a Labubu, and that started to like really explode Labubu's popularity. So I see a lot of girls, especially in LA, who are like really like stylish and kind of fancy looking who have Labubu, but I think that if Labubu was a human character, she would be super messy and chaotic and kind of the opposite, I guess, of a lot of the girls who seem to love her. But of course, this little character is so popular, it's really hard to cast one particular aesthetic onto her fans. So I just wanted her to look really, really wild and crazy and free. I also made sure to give her exactly 9 sharp teeth, because one of the ways that you can tell that a Labubu is fake or a Lafufu is if it has more than 9 teeth. That is a very stereotypical way that you can tell that this is like a bootleg version. I didn't want to get too much into the controversy around Labubu being like an over-consumerist token or whatever. I do think there's somewhat legitimate critiques of like blind boxes and the gambling aspect of them, but if you have like 1 or 2 Labubu and you really love it, I don't think you should let anybody bum you out about it, especially because every generation has a cute little toy that people go berserk over. I mean, look at troll dolls, Beanie Babies, all of that stuff. Some of the oldest pieces of art in human history are little figurines of humans with animal traits, so I think this is just part of our nature, honestly. Next, I want to talk about Miffy. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, Miffy has like collectible toys, but Miffy is not generally a toy. She really is sort of more of like a illustration character that you see around a lot. So why is she in this video? And that is because I'm biased. This is a bias warning. I love Miffy. If I had to tag myself as one of the girls in this video, it would definitely be the Miffy one, because I have multiple little figurines of Miffy. I have a vintage coin bank of Miffy from Japan in like the 1950s. I love her. I think she's so cute. So that's why she's in the video, and also because, I mean, there are blind boxes of her, I think, at this point. So Miffy was designed by Dick Bruna, who was a Dutch author. He wrote and illustrated over 120 children's books and worked for over 60 years. very passionate artist and illustrator. One of the most interesting bits of research that I discovered while I was looking up his career and Miffy as a character was that he openly had beef with Sanrio for their character of Hello Kitty. He straight up said that it was kind of a ripoff of Miffy, and Miffy was very popular in Japan prior to Hello Kitty's creation, so I think I can see what he's saying there. But it is always interesting when you hear these like iconic artists beefing. Artists were fighting with each other throughout history. If you ever want to have a good time, you should just look up all the different like arguments that even the really classic painters used to have with each other. It's pretty fascinating. Everyone has always been this way forever. There's always drama. But anyway, that's beside the point. So Miffy is a small rabbit. She's drawn with very thick lines, and usually her design is extremely simple. She only really has one expression with the little X mouth, and just like Hello Kitty is effective for having kind of a plain appearance that children can sort of reflect whatever they're feeling onto, Miffy works in a very similar way. Another funny note about Miffy's whole like design was that originally Miffy was going to be a boy rabbit, but Dick Bruna changed her to a girl just because he would rather draw a dress, which is so me. That's so funny. And he originally designed it because he was telling his son about a little bunny that he saw in the dunes. And Miffy is actually a word that's kind of comes from the Dutch word for like bunny, like a child's diminutive version of a little rabbit. So she is often illustrated with very clear primary colors. Her design is so incredibly simple and effective, which is why it's particularly funny for me to try to draw a version of her, because I love to put in all these crazy detail and stuff. Like my design philosophy is so different that it was just kind of fun. Like I put a bunch of little rabbit faces in the lace at the edge of her dress. Dick Bruna would never do this, but I guess that's the value I'm adding, I suppose. Another really interesting thing about Miffy's history is that in the 1990s, she was being used as a mascot, without permission, obviously, of these groups that were trying to directly oppose the UK government's road building program. They would have flyers with her holding a little wrench behind her back, and she became kind of this punk symbol for groups that were doing some really intense like ecological activism, which I think is really interesting. So remember we were talking about how every generation has their little toy that they go nuts for? Well, just a decade ago, or maybe a little longer, definitely pop figures were that toy. There are still people who collect pop figures to this day, but they've definitely fallen out of favor, and a lot of people have criticized them for their dead, soulless eyes. I think a lot of people like pop figures just because of the sheer amount of licenses that they're able to acquire. In some cases, a property is so niche that a pop figure is going to be the only figure that you will find of it, and I think that that's probably why a lot of people end up getting into them. The other reason is that they are extremely cheap, between like $7 and $10 usually, so if you're like a child and you want an anime figure, you're probably going to be better off buying the Miku pop figure rather than the multiple $100 actual Miku figures, especially back in the day when pop figures were popular. Figures were not as easy to get outside of Japan, especially at a lower price point, so it was pretty much boxing people out unless they wanted to buy one of these little guys. So Funko, the company that makes pop figures, was originally founded by a man named Mike Becker, who was a toy collector, and he really wanted a coin bank of the mascot from the Big Boy restaurants. I actually love Bob's Big Boy. It's kind of an iconic spot in LA. I saw Lana Del Rey there once. She was just walking around. Anyway, that's besides the point. They have a very fantastic mascot who's like this little fella, and so basically Mike Becker really wanted a a coin bank of him, couldn't find one that was reasonably priced, so he literally made a whole company in order to get the license to this little fella and make coin banks. He almost immediately had to file for bankruptcy protection because they didn't sell well, but he managed to stay in business by getting the rights for a bobblehead to Austin Powers, which sold pretty well. After that point, Funko started slowly licensing more and more stuff, including like cereal mascots like Tony the Tiger, the Grinch, and then he sold the company in 2005. So at that point, the pop vinyl figurines started getting made in around 2011, and that's when the Funko pop figure story really started. I think for our humanoid pop figure girl, I just wanted her to stick as close as I could to the stylings of the actual figure. I didn't even give her a mouth. And of course she has those very, very large black eyes. Now I confess, I had a couple pop figures growing up. I definitely found them to be affordable. And back in the day, I just remember thinking like, wow, I can't believe there's a figure of this character or this character. I think our humanoid pop figure girl would be kind of a Disney adult, not like an extreme version, but like a mild one. Probably a fan of Marvel movies, relatively pure of heart and non-cynical, and good at retro gaming. I just feel that in my bones. Next up, I want to talk about Sonny Angels. Now, Sonny Angels, I always used to think were actually associated with like Kewpie Mayo and the Kewpie Baby. That's not a total coincidence because they were inspired by the Kewpie Baby, but I don't think they actually have any sort of partnership or anything like that. They were designed by Japanese toy maker Toru Soya, and basically were supposed to be a sort of calming or relaxing figure for stressed out Japanese women during times of financial hardship. They were actually originally released during a really economically uncertain time that got even worse during the 2008 financial crisis. I think you can really see the era in the design of these little guys. They just scream like Y2K kind of vibe to me, and they did first kind of get introduced in 2004, so I'm very familiar with that time period, though I was quite young at that point. The interesting thing about these guys is they're like naked. Like they got their whole thing out, which is totally fine by me. I mean, I'm an art student, but I think they are a little bit edgier as like a toy figurine because usually, genitals are not featured, even really, really tiny. So I think the Sonny Angel girls are a little bit edgier. They're actually a little more punk than some of the other toy collectors in these categories. I think it's really interesting that though they've been kind of available for this entire time since their release, they became extremely popular recently. It does seem like their sort of stated design goal of being comforting to people during times of economic stress has actually stuck around. Like as we're possibly going into another recession or depression, they're getting more and more popular. And Generation Z is like the main consumer of Sonny Angels now, which is really interesting because a lot of them weren't even born when Sonny Angels were first coming onto the market. Like a lot of these little blind box figurines, there's been a lot of artist collaborations. The interesting thing is that Toru, he actually named them Sonny Angels after his own nickname, Sonny. So they're kind of like little versions of him while also being like little cherubs, and yeah, being inspired by the little Kewpie Baby. I love their little sideways glance. They are very cute, and they do have that like baby doll look to them that I think is really soothing for a lot of people probably who played with baby dolls as a young person. For the humanized version, obviously I've got to have our girl with no pants on because that's one of the most iconic things about these little guys, as well as sort of leaning into the 2000s kind of color palette that it seems like they're mostly sticking with even now. So we have like this bright teal. I really associate these blues with that era, and I'm also mixing it up with some other nice pastel primary colors, some canary yellow, a little like salmony red kind of color. I also gave her a little bit of like a necklace, like one of those charm bracelet things that you can add on different charms, but in necklace form. And I also gave her a little wing. I covered her face in stickers. I would see this as someone who's got a little bit of that Decora Harajuku kind of vibe. You know, a total maximalist who loves to decorate and a super free spirit. I hope you guys enjoyed watching me make character designs and aesthetics based around these collectible toys. Let me know if you collect any of these guys. Like I said, I only have Miffy stuff personally, but my heart is open to all of them. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching till the end, and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you so much to my patrons and members, including Pale Star, Darkholder, Frog Scourge, Zucchini, Zio Reyes, The Main PC, Esther Kaufman, Sopapia, Roger Baker, Pretty Little Head Poppy Seed, Hey Joel, Neko Omori, Trexa Panda, Lucians, Lonely Zealot, Novel Goblin, The Mousy Mouse, Jessica Cook, Prince Piplip III, I'm a Potato, Honey Kitten, Loro, Data, Lily McFarlane, Skitten, Gold Pikachu. The Names Are Gone, Crodotus, Rectangle, Blanket of Misery, Moves Like Platinum, Sunday Good Enough, Ace Warner, Jordan, Clown of Clubs, Jeffu, Sunshine, River the Goblin, Raz Taroche, Casey, Graveyard Moss, Grexius, Emma Lightning, The Midwestern Menace, CB, Lucy Yamajiki, Ravenscrow, Zocelot, Jabber Dabber Doo, Light Julie, Kadaria, The Expressive Poker Face, Tsubaki, Cutie Pie, Ice Cream Pal, Cola, JJ Jade, and of course, Blah 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 Blah.